hello, everybody. Good
Howdy.
morning. Happy New Year, everybody. Woo, woo, we made it
Happy
through
New Year!
2020. F you 2020.
There
Bye-bye
you
now.
go.
Bye, Felicia. God, that sucked. Okay. And as we were talking about before we hit live, though it did not change a damn thing because it was just a minute later, it just feels lighter. It just feels better to have that in our rear view.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I've never been more excited to end a year than this year, and I think I'm
Me too.
on Earth. I agree. Like, yay, 21.
God, yes, bring it on. So, for those of you who are not, first of all, welcome, Happy New Year, all of that. For those of you who don't recognize this guy, Dr. Aaron Boster, what the hell is wrong with you? Like he's the man. He's our favorite MS neurologist. He, correct me if I'm wrong, but you started the YouTube channel that PS has 25,000 subscribers now. When I first interviewed you, there was, I think, 12,000. Okay.
I think we just hit 27.
Oh my God.
And I'll have to be honest with you, it's a joy to check every couple of days. And be
I
like,
bet.
It's really neat. I started back in, I think, 2016 when a patient would no show to the clinic and I'd have a half an hour free. I didn't know what to do with myself. And so I just turned to my camera and I would just kind of record a video and upload it to YouTube.
Yeah, educational about MS and
and then it
spoken
just sort of
in layman terms.
That I now really look forward to.
And how many videos do you have now?
Just over 400. I think there's 402.
God. And they're so good. They're so understandable and they're like bite-sized pieces.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Really, I refer people, I bet every other day I refer people over there because it's just so helpful. So helpful.
The goal was to create content that would energize, it would empower, and it would also educate people impacted by MS. And that could be someone with the condition or their spouse or their cousin, or even a care provider, in the medical field. And I really love this forum, this social media forum, because you can go back and look at it later. You can rewind it and rewatch it. It just makes it very, very palatable.
It does. It does. Yeah. And for those of us with cog fog, which PS I'm experiencing today, if you can't handle it today, it'll be there for you tomorrow. Like
that's exactly
this video. So yay. So, okay. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing so much for our community. Thank you for coming on FUMS one more time.
My pleasure. I'm really excited to be with you this morning.
This is so important and this is so confusing and so scary. So obviously we're talking about COVID-19 and we're talking about the vaccine. Let me just start with when this shit started getting real and people started asking me questions about obviously we're immunocompromised. Many of us take immunosuppressant drugs, but what does that mean for us getting COVID? Are we more susceptible? Will we fare worse? So let's start with that because that's where I started with this.
That's a great place to start. So let's back up one step.
Okay.
Many of us before 2020 would talk about getting the flu. We would get the flu bug. And that doesn't mean, in common parlance, the flu doesn't mean influenza A. The flu, the croup, the crud refer to just getting an upper respiratory tract infection, a cold, maybe a fever. And many, many different viral families can do that, including this giant family of viruses called coronavirus family. There are hundreds and hundreds of coronaviruses, and
which nobody had heard of before this year, 2020, last year.
Some of them impact humans, and they can make you feel sick. And what happened at the beginning of 2020 was there was a novel coronavirus, a new coronavirus that the human species was not familiar with. And it's been destroying us. It's developed into a global viral pandemic. This novel coronavirus, COVID-19, has claimed 320,000 American lives in less than a year, and it's a scourge. It's horrible. I have had patients of my own spend 2 weeks in the intensive care unit, become intubated. We've lost 2 patients in our clinic. This is a terrible, terrible time. Yeah. And the silver lining, which happened to coincide with the election and now with the new year, was the advent of new vaccines. And there are actually 4 or 5 vaccines in development. 2 have been approved by the American FDA, a vaccine by a company Pfizer and another vaccine by a company Moderna. And they're now FDA approved, and they're now in the process of rolling these out to the American populace, starting with the people that are at highest risk, frontline workers and folks that live in nursing homes. So that is a godsend, and it is America's hope. When we first became aware of the virus, there was an attempt to globally to social distance and self-quarantine. And in some places in the world that worked. So there's no coronavirus in Taiwan. They eradicated it by successfully social distancing. And that has to do with spacing yourself out enough that if you got COVID-19, you couldn't pass it on to anyone. And so the virus died in you, and then you didn't propagate it. In the United States, we were unsuccessful in those attempts. And we have a second chance to save lives, and that's with the advent of the vaccine. The 2 vaccines that I mentioned are fascinating novel vaccines. They're called mRNA vaccines. They're scientifically genius and eloquent, and I think the people that invented them will assuredly win the Nobel Prize. And they are 95 and 99% effective. That's way higher than we're used to. Now,
way higher than the flu. Way
correct,
higher than
which is
flu
like 70%.
vaccine.
Now,
Yeah.
your question is very, very germane to all people with chronic conditions and in our community, folks impacted by MS. And so let's look at the coronavirus pandemic and the coronavirus vaccines from the perspective of folks impacted by MS. Having multiple sclerosis does not suggest an immunosuppressed state. So having MS is not an immunosuppressed state. On the contrary, it's the opposite. People with MS have an overly active immune response. And if you'll notice, folks with MS tend not to get the flu or the croup or the cold as much as everyone else in their house. Their immune system is revved up. And they're not immunosuppressed. And having MS in and of itself is not increasing the risk to contract COVID. So if you have MS,
that's huge.
Or if you don't have MS, there's not an increase or decreased risk to contract the virus. Contracting the virus has everything to do with coming in contact with the virus. So if you don't come in contact with anyone else that has COVID-19, you can't get COVID-19. Whether you have MS or diabetes or cancer, God forbid, or if you're healthy, it has everything to do with exposure. And that's a really important point. We need to wash our damn hands. We need to not stop doing that. We need to wear a face mask that covers your mouth and your nose. All right. Exactly. So, I love that. FUMS. So
I sent you one of these this week.
Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait to wear it. I'll post it on social media. But, if you're wearing a mask like this, that's not okay.
Right.
It needs to cover your mouth and your nose.
I hate when it's down here. Like I go to
Well, the problem,
I was just at the grocery store and this guy had it down here and I said, works a lot better if it's up over your nose too.
Well, the whole idea is you breathe out through your nose and you breathe out respiratory particles and you suck them in. And so you're not protecting yourself. We need to social distance. We need to not gather in small groups. This was collectively the worst series of holiday events ever in the history of my family's life and probably the whole United States. And yet it was what we needed to do to keep us safe. Now, the second question is, if you contract COVID, are you at increased risk of a more severe infection? And the answer is actually the same. Having MS in and of itself does not increase the risk of a more severe infection.
Excellent.
And then we ask the question, well, what if you're on a medicine that suppresses the immune response? Because many people with MS take medicines that suppress various aspects of their immune response. Now, the common idea is that if you're on an immunosuppressant, you might not be able to fight off a viral insult or an infection as easily. And so the thought is, if you're on an immunosuppressant, that you have a higher risk of a more severe COVID experience. But I don't necessarily know that I believe that. Now, the reality is we don't know. Right? I don't know. You don't know. Other doctors you talk, we don't know.
Right. Novel.
But when you look at the data, what I see is as follows. No matter which cohort of MS patients you look at who got COVID and cleared it or had bad outcomes, the common thread is comorbid conditions. So it's not so much they have MS and they're on a particular drug A or B. They have MS and they have comorbid risk factors for more severe COVID. Age over 50 is a higher risk than being 40, and being
Right.
60 is a higher risk than being 50. So
Mhm.
advanced age is probably one of the largest risk factors. Morbid obesity, immobility, cardiovascular risk factors. So heart disease, congestive heart failure, lung
Asthma. Yeah.
asthma, COPD. Smoking is probably one of the very largest risks. And I'll never forget the statistic that I learned in April of this past year. In Wuhan, China, the men who smoked that got COVID died 14 times more likely than those that didn't. Not twice as likely, 14 times as likely. So whether or not you have a severe version of COVID has most to do with the comorbid risk factors, not so much whether you have MS or what drug you're on. And it's so
Okay.
important that people understand that.
Yeah, that's huge. That answers actually quite a few questions that we got in. And let me first say to everybody, thank you so much for sending all these questions. I was bombarded and I've tried to put them together because a lot of people obviously would have asked the same questions. So I hope to get to all of them. I hope I did a good job in compiling, and I hope everybody gets their questions answered. But if not, leave them in the comments and we will get them answered
Yep.
for you for sure.
Deal.
Yeah, so important. Thank you all for sending that in. This is such an important conversation. And I love what you just said, because I think that certainly made me feel better. I haven't had a definitive answer like that about, am I at more risk and what happens if I get it? Am I going to be sicker and all that? So that all makes a ton of sense. Thank you for that.
For sure.
So, okay, let's start with Lori Smith said this. My question has to do with those of us with MS who currently are not on immunosuppressive therapy, but are trying to minimize exposure to inflammatory triggers via diet, cutting out gluten, dairy, sugar, etc. Good on you, Lori, by the way. That's something on my resolutions for this year. We'll see how that goes. That's been on resolutions in past years too, but we'll see how this goes. What type of inflammatory response we might expect following the vaccine, wondering if relapses might be more common, worsening of symptoms. I realize it's too early to know definitively, and time will tell once more data is collected, but wondering in theory, especially in regards to T cell immunity.
So Lori, that was 3 questions, and it's kind of spread out all over the place. And so let's try to break it down or unpack it a little bit. First off, you commented that you're exploring anti-inflammatory diets or diets that you think might decrease inflammation. And I think that's fantastic. I encourage you to continue your exploration. And what you may find for you is that avoiding a certain food type, whether that be dairy or gluten, might result in you having a lot more energy, feeling less bloated. It might help in many, many different ways. And so I think it's fantastic that you're figuring that out. And I hope that you continue along those lines. Now, the second question, or the second part of your question, had to deal a lot with the reactions to receiving a vaccine. And I'm going to be talking almost exclusively over the next hour about 2 vaccines, the mRNA Pfizer vaccine and the mRNA Moderna vaccine. So the AstraZeneca vaccine, the J&J vaccine, the Sputnik vaccine, I'm going to put aside because I'm less familiar with them. There's less published data and they haven't been FDA approved yet. So just to kind of say that. Now, we studied these vaccines extensively. It's a misconception that these vaccines were not studied, right? Okay. So it happened quickly, but they went through a normal regimen, a normal clinical trial where they studied it for the normal amount of time in the normal number of patients, tens of thousands of humans. And you study a vaccine typically for 2 months. Why? Because if you're going to have a reaction, it's going to be typically within the first couple of days, but certainly within the first 2 months. And you mount an immune response within 1 month. So by studying it for 2 months, we really have a very good sense of the playing field. And what's the playing field? There weren't any weird surprises when people were given this vaccine in the clinical trials. So we didn't see people's arms fall off or them turn green or their penis shrink or any other weird things, right? We saw
that last one's super important.
Correct. Yeah, no, I that would make me
good you got that out there. Yeah.
And so what we saw was people can have flu-like symptoms when they get vaccinated. They can have pain at the injection site. That's what they most commonly see. What we didn't see were weird new things. There was rare instances of Bell's palsy, rare instances of Guillain-Barré, and I think the number I heard was roughly a risk of 1 in 100,000. I'm not making light of either of those conditions, but when I consider the risk benefit of developing COVID-19 and passing it on to my family versus a 1 in 100,000 risk of those conditions, I'm choosing to take the vaccine. And just to be super clear, I am going to take the vaccine. I'm going to ask my family to take the vaccine, and I want you to take the vaccine, just so that we're on the same page. Now, you asked, could it trigger an attack? And we don't know the answer, right? I mean, because we haven't studied these vaccines in large groups of people with MS, but there's no reason to think it would. This is not a live vaccine, and we should probably talk about how it works in a second, but it's a dead vaccine, and there's no reason to think that it'll trigger an attack. And so I'm not concerned about that. And we have to see, but there's no reason going into this that we should have that expectation. Now, the third question had to deal with T cells, which is an interesting comment. Oftentimes, when we think about immunizations, we only think about B cells. We only think about antibodies, which is half of the adaptive immune system. We know from studying these two vaccines, when you give someone the vaccine, they mount a very robust, a very, very large T cell response, which means even if you're on a B cell killer and your B cells are suppressed, you're still going to mount a really big T cell response. And so that's a very positive, good thing. I'm very encouraged, and I am very, very encouraged to offer immunizations to my clinic patients with MS so I can keep them protected.
So we're going to get to this question in a little bit, but I just want to see if I'm thinking correctly here. So even if you are on one of the B cell depressants, you're still, you may not build the number of antibodies that you would otherwise, but like half is better than none.
Yeah.
Am I on the right page? Okay.
There's a lot of drama and discussion about people with MS taking B cell killers. So if we use names, Ocrevus, Rituxan, Kesimpta, right? These are B cell killers, highly, highly effective medicines to treat MS. And what they do is they knock down adult B cells, but we have to understand what that means. Plasma cells are a type of B cell that make antibodies. And those three drugs do not affect plasma cells. So it's not that you have no B cells, it's that you don't have a certain type of B cells, and you actually can mount an immune response, and you can mount an immune response with antibodies, but it's attenuated. So I'm going to share with you data from other vaccines, right? Because we studied these B cell killers with other vaccines, and here's what we learned. If you get, say, Ocrevus, right, and then a month later, you get vaccinated. And I'm talking about vaccines for like influenza, DTaP, MMR, the ones that we grew up with. Those vaccines work. They're successful, but they're attenuated. So they have a less robust response. So maybe 50% as opposed to 100%. Now, again, when we're talking about these known vaccines, if you give someone a B cell killer, like Ocrevus, we're using as an example, and then you wait 5 months, a month before their next infusion, and you immunize them, it takes 100%. And so, no, we don't know what's going to happen with the COVID vaccine, but the bottom line is receiving the vaccine will be successful. We don't think it'll trigger an attack. We don't think that it's going to cause you to develop an infection. And we do believe you're going to mount an immunity. It'll just be not 100%. And as you just mentioned, a partial immunity is way better than no immunity.
Yeah.
I should also comment, it's not just the B cell killers, it's also the S1P1 receptor modulators. That's a mouthful, talking about pills like Gilenya, Mayzent, and Zeposia. Those pills also may cause a suppressed response, but people are still going to respond. So the punchline to my jibber jabber is take the damn vaccine, even if you're on one of those medicines, please.
Got it. Okay. Bottom line it for us. Okay, so as we just mentioned, like Ocrevus is the one that I got the most questions about. So you said a lot there, but I'm just going to go through these questions so everybody can hear that I am addressing them. So Jeff Spears said it most concisely. He said, I'm on Ocrevus. Can I take the vaccine? You just answered that. Yes.
And you should take the vaccine.
And you should. Okay. Linda McClinton said, so is there a window of time between Ocrevus infusions when it would be best to receive the vaccine? You mentioned something about that.
So the real answer, Linda, is we don't know. All right, that's the real answer. There's a lot of theory, and what I shared, the data that I shared just a second ago, is borrowed from other vaccine studies that we've done. There's a study called the Veloci trial, or Velici, I can't pronounce the term. I was actually in the trial, but they didn't train me on
how to say it.
Yeah, so the Velici trial, we took people impacted by MS with relapsing MS, gave them Ocrevus, and then we immunized them, and we saw the degree to which the immunization took. And if you took the vaccine a month after getting Ocrevus, it worked partially, about 50%. Now, from other data, if you got Ocrevus and 3 months later got vaccinated, it worked a little bit better, maybe 50 to 70%-ish. And if you wait just before your next infusion, that's when you have the highest likelihood of your B cells having started to return to some degree. You mount the biggest response.
Sweet spot.
Now, there is a thought or a theory that if you've been on B cell killers for a long time, maybe your response to immunizations is suppressed overall. But again, nobody is saying it's not going to take. Everybody is saying it's going to work. And the question is, to which degree is it going to work? So
yeah.
If you can time the Ocrevus and the vaccine perfectly, congratulations.
Right.
So, but the vast majority of Americans don't know when they're going to be eligible, and we don't know how to time it. And so I want to make it very straightforward. If somebody offers you the vaccine, say, thank you, yes, I'll take it. And then it might be fair to call your neurologist and say, hey, by the way, I was offered the vaccine. Is this a good time? And I've had that call many, many, many times over the last couple of weeks, as many of my patients that are healthcare providers are being offered the vaccine. And 9 times out of 10, my answer is take it. One time we might delay Ocrevus by a week or two. And so really, I think that we have to be thoughtful. One more comment. If you take the vaccine, again, the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine, you take the first injection. 3 weeks later, you take the second injection. A month after you took the first one, all right, so a total of 4 weeks, you mount full immunity. So as far as timing goes, I want you to take the first vaccine shot a month before your next Ocrevus, not sooner, because we need to allow a month for your body to build an immunity. Then we can go and take our MS therapy.
Right. But should they put off their Ocrevus infusion for that reason?
I don't want people to push off their therapies. Working directly with your doc, if you push it back a week or two to make sure that you have that 1 month, is probably adequate. What I want to avoid, with exceptions, is people just stopping their disease-modifying therapies, waiting around for their opportunity to have a vaccine, allowing themselves to accrue brain and spinal cord damage and become disabled. We don't want to forget why we treat MS. We treat MS to make you the most awesome version of you and to allow your brain to age naturally despite having the condition. And we don't want to just take a two-year pause while we're trying to sort out a pandemic. We have to pony up and do both. Yeah.
And aren't we lucky now that we have an opportunity to do that? Okay, so this is, you've already answered this, but I just want to acknowledge this. This is our wonderful MS advocate, Kathy Chester, who said, what's your best estimate about waiting to get the vaccine after an Ocrevus infusion? How long should the time period be between vaccine and infusion? Kathy, I am confident you just got your answer, but I wanted to acknowledge that you had that question.
Can we both say hi to Kathy, because she's awesome?
Yes.
Hey, Kathy, it's great to see you.
Love you, Kath. So Patricia Flynn said, my DMT is Ocrevus. With a weakened immune system. Now, we're going to need to re-say this, I think, a few times, because that is a misnomer. Am I going to die if I leave the house or go to a gym? I'm hoping that was sarcasm. I called Genentech, which is, the pharma company that makes Ocrevus, and they said that the vax won't help me as I medically have no immune system to use or hold on to the vax. It would be a waste for me to get it. Am I doomed? I cannot get or use the vax. With a weakened immune system, would getting COVID kill me? There's a lot to unpack there, but I think this is so important because a lot of people believe all of this.
So the first thing is, if you read something on the internet where someone refers to the word vaccine, VAX, you should be highly suspicious. That is a
Good
red flag.
point.
That is a red
That's so
flag for death,
true.
right? So if
Good
you see
point.
someone write vax, I want you to, that raises a red flag. And there's actually culturally historical reasons why, right? So uh, what I want to share is most of that person's information is simply false, right?
Yeah.
It's not opinion, it's fact, and those facts are incorrect. Fact number one is people with MS are not immunosuppressed, right? So that's not true. Number two, nobody at Genentech is legally allowed to tell another human that the vaccine would work or not. So that didn't happen because they would be profoundly illegal for them to give medical advice, good or bad. So that conversation did not occur. I'm just to state facts. So even if there was a conversation, the conclusion would not be you're not allowed to have it, and the conclusion would not be it will kill you, because neither of those things are true. So there's just a lot of facts there that we have to unpack and clarify, which as presented were not accurate. Now, now there's also a lot of fear expressed, and maybe some of it was with humor, but the bottom line is, oh my God, if I go outside, am I at risk of dying? Right. And that's a fair concern that a lot of Americans have. So if you live in a hermetically sealed bubble in your basement, all right, and your family sends you down, sealed packets of food for the next 2 years, you won't get COVID.
You're good. Right.
Yep. But there's a problem in doing that because you might need to use the bathroom, or you might want to talk on the phone, or like watch a Netflix show, or go to work. Yeah. And so anything shy of living in your basement is going to place you at risk. The risk is not that you step outside and explode. And in fact, I want to bring out a really important point. It is safe to be outside. In fact, we should go outside.
Yes. So healthy.
It's not safe to be in groups of people, right? So the problem is not that you're outside of your home. It's that you're in a park in a tight-knit circle with 20 people or something like that. Yeah. That's where there's concerns. And where we have seen the rapid spread of COVID wasn't outside, it was inside. It was during Thanksgiving when people didn't listen to recommendations and they all got together with their families and breathed on each other and got everybody sick. So you can leave your house, you can go outside, and you're not going to explode. There are no deaths associated with the vaccines to date, to my knowledge. All right. Now, I'm not a virologist. I'm not an epidemiologist. I don't have secret information about the vaccines. I'm just an MS neurologist trying to help people live their best lives despite having the condition, and trying to help educate as it relates to all this weird immunology stuff. And so I understand the fear, but no, what you can do is remember that you have control. You can go outside with a mask or without a mask. To go out without a mask is to place yourself in danger. You can wash your hands or you can not wash your hands. And to wash your hands is to be safe.
Yes.
You can avoid being within 6 feet of other people, and you can say no to social gatherings or not. Those are the decisions that will keep you safe or not. And the vaccine, I think, is a godsend. I think it's a godsend if you have MS. I think it's a godsend if you have MS and you're on Ocrevus. I think it's a godsend no matter how we slice and dice it, because this vaccine will help protect you against something that can cause death. And that's a really big deal.
That is a really big deal. I just want to mention that Suzanne Sonderland, I hope I'm saying that right, just said, does your necklace say FUMS? And it does, in fact, say FUMS. And she said, and if it does, where do I get one? So I wanted to say, you can go to the website, FUMSnow.com/shop. There's all kinds, and this too. There's lots of goodies in there.
Wait,
so thank you, Suzanne.
Let's show your mug as well.
Oh yeah, my mug too. That's right.
Awesome.
Yes, and this is helping with my cog fog. So, thank you, Suzanne, for asking. Okay, Debbie Bright says, and this is, kind of all encompassing. We've already said this, but she has one thing that we haven't addressed, I think. She said, I have the same question most of us have. How safe is the vaccine for individuals with MS? And specifically those of us on DMTs. As for my specific situation, I'm on Mavenclad and would like to know his thoughts. So I don't think we've talked about that one yet.
So Mavenclad, cladribine, is a really interesting MS medicine. And mechanistically, the way it works is weird. So you take a pill a day for 5 days, then you wait 1 month, then you take a pill a day for 5 days, and then you're off drug for a year. So that's really strange, right? So you take
Yeah.
20 pills that first year, and then the second year, you take a pill a day for 5 days, wait a month, a pill a day for 5 days, and then we don't treat you anymore. And the reason this is relevant to the vaccine is what the drug does. When you take the 5 days worth of pills, and then a month later take the 5 days worth of pills, it drops your immune response. It suppresses your B and T cells. Now, it doesn't suppress them very much, actually. The T cells really kind of go down like half, and the B cells go down a bit more, but they don't bottom out, and they come back a couple months later. And so the answer to Mavenclad in any vaccine is the timing. The best case scenario, if it was available, would be to be vaccinated for anything, for that matter, prior to starting Mavenclad, a month beforehand. But if you've received Mavenclad, your doctor can check a white blood cell count, a very easy, inexpensive lab, and see when the cells have gone down and see when they've come back up. And when they've come back up, it's safe to take the vaccine. So interestingly, it's actually very easy to schedule vaccines with Mavenclad. Worst case scenario, you're just going to wait a couple months and then you're going to be good to go.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Lauren, I hope I'm saying this right. Snyd, Sneyd, PhD. So I'm going to say Dr. Snyd. It would be good to know the impact of the vaccine on the immune system and the best vaccine for someone with MS on a DMT. I'm on Tecfidera. Also, we don't really know how long the vaccine will last. Do you have any insights?
So great question. Let's unpack it and start with a comment about Tecfidera. So dimethyl fumarate, Tecfidera, or a new drug in the same class, Vumerity, with this, which is diroximel fumarate, are both pills that you take for MS. And the way they're supposed to work is by interfering with this NRF2 pathway thing, which causes your body to make an antioxidant cascade of loveliness, which suppresses MS. All right.
I love that.
There's a side effect in about 20% roughly of people that take these medicines where it actually causes their white counts to be pushed down. So the first thing that we have to think about with Tecfidera and Vumerity is, does that individual have a suppressed white count? And you can check that by checking a lab. If there's no suppressed white count, we're done with the conversation. They're not at risk, and the Tecfidera is not really playing a role. They're not immunosuppressed. I mean, it's kind of a good scenario and an easy place to kind of think about things. If the white count is down, then they may be immunosuppressed, and then we have to think about it slightly differently. So that's the first thing, is triaging Tec with immunosuppression, about 20%. It's a side effect that we don't expect. Tec without immunosuppression, it's about 80% of people. So that's the first comment. The second piece that I think we need to talk about is which vaccine's better for people with MS. We don't know. Like, we literally don't know the answer. Now I'm going to give you an opinion, but it's just my opinion. It doesn't make me right. It just makes me opinionated. The Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine are mRNA vaccines. They're dead. And so I feel most comfortable giving them. The AstraZeneca vaccine has a live attenuated adenovirus. All right. So it's using a mutated, or I shouldn't say mutated because people.
Yeah, that's scary.
So it's using a live attenuated adenovirus to get the vaccine to you, which is not an uncommon way of using viruses, but that is sort of a live attenuated version. And if I had my druthers, I would shy away from it. I'm not telling you it's known to be dangerous. I'm just saying if I have the choices, I'm going to stick with the things that are completely dead vaccines, which is typically the recommendation for anyone with MS, to shy away from live vaccines and instead to seek out dead vaccines. And so,
yeah, not just this one, like flu vaccines. Like, I didn't get a shingles shot because it was live until they came out with the new dead one. Then I got it.
That's exactly right. Yep, that's exactly right.
Good. All right. I just had a question that hopefully will help, because this gets tossed around a lot, and I think maybe you could clarify this. So with MS, we are not immunosuppressed. We might be on drugs that are considered immunosuppressants because our immune system's overactive. So would it be correct to say that we are immunocompromised because it's weird?
So these
overactive.
So immunosuppression is where you push down the immune response.
Yeah.
Someone who is immunosuppressed is immunocompromised. Those two terms
Okay.
are very, very similar. So a compromised immune system is a suppressed immune system.
Okay.
And a suppressed immune system is compromised. So that's just English.
Got
And
it.
what I would say is someone with MS not on a DMT is not immunosuppressed and they're not immunocompromised.
Okay.
Someone with MS on a DMT, it depends on which DMT.
Mm-hmm.
So if they, for example, receive alemtuzumab, Lemtrada, right,
Mm-hmm.
that massively immunosuppresses you, and therefore you would be immunocompromised for a period of 6 to 12 months. But if you took Lemtrada 8 years ago or 5 years ago or even 3 years ago, you're no longer immunosuppressed and you're no longer immunocompromised because over months, those cells come back up to a normal range.
Got it. Okay. So we're just immuno
You're,
stimulated.
you're
We're
yeah,
immunostimulated.
you have an overly active immune response,
Right.
which inappropriately targets brain and spinal cord.
Yeah.
So it's
It's overachievement in a bad way.
correct. Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Got it. Okay. Okay, Julie Neitzel Carr says, as an MS patient, I've heard both that those with chronic conditions would be part of a priority list for the vaccine. And I've heard that those with MS should not get the vaccine, which we've already cleared up. Get the fucking vaccine.
Amen.
So, which one is it? Well, I kind of answered that one, but.
So this is actually very relevant because it's kind of clear as mud.
Yeah, right.
We, here in the United States, there isn't an easy way to go to one location that I'm aware of and find out, okay, today, here's who's eligible, right? It's not straightforward.
So
and I spent a lot of time digging through like the CDC website and trying to figure out like the tiers and all this stuff. And it's not clear. Here's what we know. Presently today, all right, January, what are we? January 2nd? Today.
In 2021, yay, we got out of 2020. Sorry.
Presently today in the United States, we're rolling out vaccine to first-line healthcare workers. So that is not me because I'm not working on a COVID ward in the hospital. Many doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists, and other medical personnel are, and they're literally exposing themselves to a potentially fatal virus every day. And so it makes a world of sense to vaccinate them so that they're protected and so they don't turn around and give it to other people. The other group of people that are being vaccinated in the United States are people that are residents of nursing facilities, nursing homes. Why? Because 24% of all the deaths came from nursing homes, and they're arguably at some of the highest risk category. And so that's where the first efforts are. Now, I was hopeful that people impacted by MS would be second tier, the next groupings of people. And based on what I've gleaned thus far, that's not the case. It looks like at least one item that I saw suggested that the next wave of people will be different kinds of doctors. So primary care doctors, I'm hopeful that our clinic will qualify under that category because we're seeing people that are immunosuppressed and I don't want to pass along virus, God forbid. So we're still waiting. Actually, I shouldn't say we're waiting. We're applying to receive vaccine and we're applying to the government. And so as you can imagine, that's quite a elaborate process. But at any rate, it looks like the people that may be second tier, at least as it was written, are folks that are also still at high risk. So people who are either 70 or 75, people who are morbidly obese, people that smoke. Now, I've had some patients say, well, that's not fair. I should start smoking. Well, it's not congratulating someone for being morbidly obese or rewarding someone for smoking. It's saying that those two categories place you at very high risk of death from COVID, so they're going to protect you. Yeah. And it may be months before we have access to the vaccine. I told my family, I think it's probably going to be 6 months. And so we need to really, even though we're excited about 2021, even though we're excited that we're starting to turn the tides, we hope, we still need to buckle up. We still need to wear masks and we still need to self-quarantine as we wait for the world to be vaccinated. Let me make one other point. Vaccines help us two different ways. Kathy, if you get vaccinated, it's going to help you, which is that's wonderful. But there's a second way that vaccines help, and it's a population discussion. If enough people in the United States get vaccinated, and it doesn't need to be 100%, but it needs to be really high, like way over 50 or 60%, then we can eradicate the virus. That's a really important word, eradicate. That means it goes away and it's not here anymore. And we have done that successfully with other vaccine programs. So you don't want to just get vaccinated to protect you. You want to get vaccinated so that if you were to come in contact with the virus dies in you and you don't pass it on to anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be really, really helpful to protect people that are still at risk in the United States. And I really hope that people listening understand not just the value to themselves, but the value to the community at large.
Right. Give the gift of health to everyone.
Yeah, please.
I like that. Also, what I heard you say about the obesity and the smoking, I just want to tell everybody, quit smoking and get outside and take a walk.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Who's next? All right, we answered that. Okay, Tracy Dyer, I take the drug Lowdose Naltrexone. Would that be safe to take with the vaccine? And do you prescribe that by chance?
So Lowdose Naltrexone is not FDA approved for MS. It is used off-label, and the science behind it is lacking. So there isn't a robust science that proves that low-dose naltrexone helps people. But that doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means there isn't science for it. So if someone in my practice wants low-dose naltrexone, and typically the dose is like 4.5 milligrams, I have 3 conditions. Number 1, it can't be too expensive, and it's not very expensive.
Cheap. It's very cheap, yes.
Number 2, it can't be dangerous, and low-dose naltrexone is not dangerous.
It is not.
And number 3, it can't be instead of something that I know works. So if you told me, hey, I'm going to stop my Tecfidera and take LDN, I would say I'm not okay with that. If you say, I'll keep taking my Tec and I want to add LDN, I'll do that. Whether it helps or not, I don't know. But again, I think it's going to be safe. Now, the answer to this person's question is, I don't know. There's no data to guide us to suggest that we have knowledge. I will say that my understanding of LDN, I can't think of a single reason why it would be dangerous. And if I had to guess, I'd guess it's okay, but I'm not going to guess about somebody's health.
Yeah.
And the reality is that we don't know yet.
Yeah. Cogfog's kicking in because I just had an important question and I forgot what it was. It'll come back.
While you're thinking about it, there is one thing that I think we most certainly want to touch bases on as it relates to the virus, and that's how the damn thing works.
Yeah. Can I, before you say anything, can I tell you what I came up with to make it make sense for me and see if this really, if this really makes sense? So how I've been explaining it is, I liken it to typing out an email. Like you're typing out an email with a set of directions and you're sending it to your cells. And then once the cells receive the directions, like here's how you do it, your email turns into a Snapchat and it disappears.
That's fantastic. Yep, I give you a
B. Oh, really? Oh, good.
B plus, A-. Yeah, I love that. That's really, really great.
Good. I would take it.
So normally when you make a vaccine, a dead vaccine, what you do is you take a virus, all right? And actually, let me get a prop.
Okay. I love props.
So here's a
Bring
prop.
on the props. Okay.
Right?
Love it.
So this is going to be our virus, this piece of paper.
Okay.
So we identify a virus and then we murder it. Right? And then we rip it up in tiny pieces. And then we have all these little viral particles. Okay. And our immune system is ready. We take these viral particles, we load them into a syringe, and we inject them into our body. Now we have the viral particles that are floating around the body, and our immune system sees, let's say, this edge to this virus, and it builds antibodies in cells that can identify that edge, and then it amplifies. And so now we have antibodies in cells that know this piece of the virus. And then when later in life you come in contact with the virus, your immune system has been primed to recognize it quickly, jump on it, and clear it.
Yeah, that's a bad guy.
Yep, and that's done with viral protein.
Okay.
Now, this virus, for some reason, we were unsuccessful in making a protein-based vaccine. It didn't work. And so what they did was eloquent. Instead of starting with the protein, they went back a step to the blueprint of the protein, which is called messenger RNA. And the blueprint, exactly like you just described, is an instruction manual for how you make the protein. What we did is we identified that mRNA blueprint and we inject that into you. And that enters your cell, and your cell's like, oh, okay. And it uses the blueprint and uses the cell's own building blocks to make the viral protein. And in specific, the viral spike protein. So if you've looked at a cartoon of the coronavirus, it's like a koosh ball and it's got
Yeah,
all the spikes sticking out.
that's right.
And those spikes are what the coronavirus uses to penetrate into the cells, the human
Oh,
cells. And so what we do is we make the spike protein. Now, you're not making the virus, just the spike. So in other words,
mm,
you're not making a blueprint to create the unicorn, just the unicorn's horn.
got it.
Now you have the viral spike protein floating around the human body that you made, but it's a viral protein. It doesn't look like a human protein. It looks like a viral protein. And your immune system says, whoa, 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 wait. What is that? And it builds an arsenal against that protein.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very creative how the vaccine helps you develop immunity. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the mRNA does not enter into your nucleus of your cells. It cannot
Okay.
change your DNA. It does
Okay.
not change your genetic code at all. And the mRNA, once it's in your cells, is degraded by cellular enzymes. And so it dissolves. And so this vaccine is really eloquent. I think that it's safe. I think that it's brilliant in the way that it was developed. I also want to point out to you that RNA vaccines are not brand new. They've been studied for over a decade. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not like somebody invented the concept in March and now we're using it.
Right.
It's something that's been floating around science and they've perfected it in this instance, which is awesome.
That is awesome. But that brings up, and I remembered the questions I had. Um, at the beginning, you said about, it seems like it was really quick, but it really was. We've done all this research and we've had all of these clinical trials and whatnot. But it is much faster to market. And I understand, the concept of the push and the warp speed and all of those things, although I don't think Pfizer was part of the warp speed development. It doesn't matter. But I think that's a lot of the fear is because we're used to, you know, these things are in development for years and years and years, and all these clinical trials and, animal
Yeah.
trials first and people trials and all
But
of this. And now we're supposed to believe this is novel. It just started. We just identified it within the horrible year that was 2020. And before the end of the year, we're rolling out vaccines. So help us understand how that happens. And can we do this now going forward? Like, is this new? Can we
so
get shit
so
to market faster?
one of the biggest I think elements of confusion is that people are not used to watching science.
Yeah.
So people aren't used to watching the scientific process. And normally the scientific process can be somewhat slow. But normally there isn't a global viral pandemic for the first time in a century that is
Mhm.
killing hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of people on Earth. So
Mhm.
a, a global viral pandemic should strike fear in anyone that hears the words. That means that something very, very bad is happening at a global scale. And so what the globe has done in response is it has thrown more resources, I'm talking billions with a B dollars, at science, saying, please, for the love of God, come up with something. And
Yeah.
scientists, in some ways, kind of stopped what they were doing and started working on this
Yeah.
project. It shouldn't be viewed with fear. It should be heralded as one of the biggest achievements of the century.
Yeah.
Our ability to bring something so important to save so many lives shouldn't be looked at critically. It should be looked at as something magical, almost in a
Mhm.
wonderful, positive manner. I think that I can't wait to read the books that will be written about the process
Yeah.
and to watch the made for TV movies that will be made
Yeah.
about what happened. It's going to be really cool to watch.
Right. So the fear that it's unfounded. The fear that it normally takes years and this didn't take but months, is because so much money and so many resources were thrown at it because this is so all encompassing and everybody just said, we're not stopping until we find it and we're going to get it to people.
We shouldn't be scared of the speed at which we made the virus vaccine. We should be scared of our loved ones dying from
Yes.
the virus.
Yes.
That's so we need to. It's appropriate to be scared, but not at the vaccine. It's appropriate to be scared of contracting the virus. And some people that are listening to us right now may say, "Well, I'm young and healthy." Well, if you look at the intensive care units, half the patients are under 60 and they're otherwise healthy without comorbid conditions in some cases. So It's
Wow.
not as if, you 20, 30 something out there are immune. You are at risk and you need to play it safe. And I'm very hopeful if you're listening to my words, you'll take the vaccine because it can save your life and it'll save your grandma's life.
Yeah. Excellent. Thelma Baldwin said, if someone in my household gets the vaccine, can they inadvertently infect me with COVID? I think this is so interesting. So if you get the vaccine, can you still sort of be a carrier and bring COVID with you?
No, you can't.
You're okay.
So
Perfect.
again, we're talking about the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines, which are mRNA. It's not a attenuated virus. So when you're
Gotcha.
being injected, you're not being injected with a virus. You're being
Right.
injected with a blueprint for how to make a protein.
Yeah.
If we can go back to the blueprint idea, and I love your email, I want to use a slightly different analogy. And imagine that somebody handed you a instruction manual for an IKEA bookshelf. Right. So they
Oh God.
an IKEA bookshelf instruction manual, but they don't give you any of the parts. And so you scurry around your house and you find some wood and some nails and glue, and you follow the IKEA instruction manual and you construct an IKEA bookshelf out of materials from your own home. When you're done with that project, you throw the manual out because you have no reason to keep it. And lo and behold, you have what looks like an IKEA bookshelf. Now, the parts were made by things in your house, but it is an IKEA bookshelf.
Right.
And that is very similar to what we're doing with the RNA vaccine.
Good. Okay. Excellent. Another MS advocate, Aline Brennan, who I adore, and I've interviewed several times on the podcast about essential oils, and she's a Walls warrior and helps people with nutrition and MS, says, I have 2 clients who are allergic to penicillin, and they've been told conflicting information about whether or not it's safe for them to get the vaccine. This is the first I've heard of this.
Okay.
So what does that have to do with anything?
So it may have nothing to do with it, but here's the question. If you have a known history of anaphylaxis to vaccinations, then you need to take cautions when you take any vaccine.
With anything,
any
right.
vaccine, including this vaccine. Does it mean that you can't get vaccinated? No, it does not mean that. Now, mind you, I'm talking about someone who has anaphylaxis to a vaccine. I'm not talking about penicillin yet. So if you have a history of anaphylaxis with vaccines, you're going to need to receive this vaccine under supervision. Probably somewhere where they're medically savvy, where they have an EpiPen at the
EpiPen, right.
And that way, God forbid you have anaphylaxis, because you're going to have anaphylaxis in the moment. EpiPen will save you.
Yeah.
And my point here is, even if you have anaphylaxis to other vaccinations, it doesn't mean that you're going to have it with this vaccine, and it doesn't mean that you can't have it, because you can. There's no reason to think that if you have an allergy to a given medicine or a given food, that you would have a worse time tolerating the COVID-19 vaccine. That there's no connection there to be made.
Good. Okay. Excellent. She says another client asked if it's safe for a pregnant MS patient to take. And before you go there, have there been clinical studies done? Has there been time to do clinical studies with MS patients to see how they've reacted?
To my knowledge, there's been no studies with any of these vaccines in special populations.
Okay.
So they most certainly did not study pregnant people.
Pregnant, right.
And there was no study focused on MS. Now, I'm told that there may have been a couple humans who happen to have MS that were in the trials, but it's not as if we studied people with MS.
Yeah. Got it.
In the same way that we didn't study people with diabetes or we didn't study people with liver disease, they tested the vaccine in humans, but they didn't study specific subpopulations.
Okay. So what do you tell your pregnant MS patients? Should they get the vaccine or not?
So I have not yet had a patient of mine who has MS and is pregnant and needs the vaccine. That hasn't come up yet.
God, the trifecta of that.
And honestly, in order to answer the question properly, I would need to do a bunch of research. So I don't want to make something up on the interwebs today. There's a lot of questions about vaccine and whether or not it could cross the placenta. And there's a bunch of things that we would need to know. So
Gotcha.
I wouldn't guess at that. I would need to do some research first.
Okay. Thank you. Last thing from Aline is she says, Dr. Walls has mentioned published studies around the benefits of taking, I'm going to try this one, N-acetylcysteine
Mhm.
NAC supplement prior to and after the vaccine to basically support your body. Does Dr. Boster have any insight or opinion on this?
So I don't have an insider opinion like I know something special. Dr. Walls or any doctor has no clue about that. That's unknown because it's never been studied with the COVID-19 vaccine. So maybe there's some theories with other vaccines, but as it relates to this one, we simply don't know. Now, there's no indication to support your body with any particular nutritional supplement when receiving a vaccine. There's no immunology science that supports that. So I can't imagine that N-acetylcysteine would hurt you, and I can't imagine that it would help you. Would I recommend that you seek it out in preparation to receive your vaccine? Absolutely not.
Okay.
And again, we do not have data that I'm aware of that says, people that took a vaccine and they took this supplement, they fared better. And so and specifically, we don't have any information as it relates to COVID-19.
Got it. Thank you. So these two vaccines that we're talking about right now, the Pfizer and the Moderna, I know that you need two. One is after 21 days and the other one's 28 days, I think. Do you know, or does anyone know, is this just going to be a one-time thing, or are we going to have to do this every year like the flu vaccine?
I don't think we know yet.
Okay.
I think it's a very, very relevant question. It's a question that I have, and I think it remains to be seen.
Gotcha.
If a very high percentage of the American populace gets vaccinated, we can eradicate the virus. And if we eradicate the virus, there will be no cause to be re-immunizing. My fear is that that won't happen and that not enough Americans will get vaccinated and it will become endemic. And we're going to need to do this on a recurrent basis. Although that's just conjecture. I don't think anybody really knows this yet.
Right. But if we all gave a shit about somebody other than ourselves, we could do this, peeps. You did touch on this, but I just want to be clear. Do you think there's one of these vaccines is more appropriate than the other for us to take? I know basically what you said is whichever one's offered, take it. But I think the
right. So the vaccine that's right for you is the one that someone offers you. And so if somebody's offering you the vaccine, I don't want you to say, I don't feel like Moderna today. I'm going to hold out for the Pfizer. No.
Right.
I think either one of those vaccines would be fantastic. And it'd kind of be like saying, congratulations, you're 16. You can go outside and pick between a Ferrari and a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
And either way, you're gonna be in a really good position.
It's a win. It's a win either way.
Right. That's exactly
right.
Grab
the keys. Grab those keys. So how do people find you? Throw out your website and your social URLs and your YouTube channel and all that so everybody knows how to find you. And do that, people, because it's phenomenal what you'll learn.
Thank you very much. So my name's Aaron Boster, and as always, I want to thank you guys for learning about MS with me. I'm easy to find on the interwebs. I've got a YouTube channel. You can go check out my name. Aaron Boster MD is the name of the YouTube channel. I'm pretty active on Twitter at Aaron Boster MD. You can find me on Facebook right here at Aaron Boster MD. You can go check out our website for the Boster Center for MS. That website is bosterms.com. So BOSTERMS.com. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys on the interwebs.
And so far, he's done two or three, I don't know, podcasts with me, and we hope to do more. So you can check that out too. So thank you so much for everything that you do for our community. So appreciate it. The education that you've given us here this morning is phenomenal. Really, really appreciate it. And, you know, we here in the FUMS Nation speak to the stupid diseases it deserves, and we tell it FUMS every day. If you would please, Dr. Boster, would you lead us in our salute to MS with middle finger extended, of course, in
with
3.
pleasure.
Are you ready?
Yep.
1, 2, 3.
FUMS.
Love it. That was perfect. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for being here. Appreciate it.
Have a great weekend. Thank you. God bless. Be safe.
Bye.